You're live, Your Worship.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Clerk Kelmke, Council, we've resumed since our a little break there after our in-camera session. It is time for us to move on with our open session. So it is the approval of the agenda at this time, which is item number 2 on our council agenda for November the 22nd, 2022. Council, recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township hereby approve the agenda dated November 22nd, 2021 as presented. And can I have a mover and seconder on the agenda? Mr. Broderick and Ms. Deneen, any questions? And I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. And that carries. Just before I go to disclosure, I just want to acknowledge that Deputy Mayor Burton doesn't have his cards with him tonight. So we'll be watching for your hands and I'll acknowledge for that. And also Councillor Leishman is not joining us tonight at this time. So we wish her the best and hope to see her soon. Council, we're going to go to our disclosure, pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Is anybody going to need disclosures about tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, if anything comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward and we'll deal with it at that time. All right, Council, we're going to go to a always popular section of our council agenda, which is item number 4, the public participation period. Need to acknowledge that be advised that comments and views expressed under public participation period are not the views of the Township of Clearview, the council, or the administration. There were, looks like 8 letters were written in. I've got some comments here that I've assembled to go along with each of these question period, public participation period questions. So let me get through them here as the best I can. I'm going to be referring to my notes instead of looking at the camera. Item number 4.1, Bob Charlton, he asked questions in regards to the fire trucks and small vehicle program that we have with Enterprise. It's in regards to our budget discussions. So our answer to Mr. Charlton is it is possible to use Enterprise for fire truck, pickup truck type vehicles. Enterprise hasn't confirmed with us the actual rates, but I know our chief is looking into it. And the one challenge is, of course, is that additional equipment that would be installed on the vehicles would need to be exchanged at intervals that might be a higher cost, given that fire and emergency vehicles generally have a little bit more on them than your average pickup truck. However, just so Mr. Charlton knows, it is being considered and we appreciate his comment. The next comment, though, also came from Bob Charlton. It's in regards to ice surfacing replacement for the ice surfacing equipment. It's in our budget discussions. Also, this is being considered, and in fact, is part of the consideration by the staff. The replacement of the ice surfacing machine, they will be reviewing the available electric machines that are out there, manufacturers that do produce them. The staff will report back if it will be within budget to purchase an electric surfacer. And so they're simply looking for us at the budget session to simply put forward just budget items and budget dollar value. So staff would then report back to us if they were making that decision to move to that electric. So stay tuned on this item. The next one is item number 4.3, Melissa Wilk, I believe is how you pronounce your name. Melissa wrote a question in regards to the budget that says that it's at 9%. So first thing I want to say is that the proposed municipal budget is just that. It's a proposed budget. Your council has not approved any changes to the budget at this time. And second, it is not a 9% tax increase. While the local media and many social media stories are being written about our budget discussions, the actual impact to resident property owners is proposed at 4.7%. And our council are working on reducing that overall tax percentage changes in future budget workshops. The 9% value is not reflective of an impact on taxpayers. It is the percent increase that our staff have reported that will be required for Clearview departments. The full municipal budget is influenced by several external sources. The overall increase or stability of the municipal tax bill is not calculated by the staff proposed budget alone. Regarding the per diems for council member, council consider these in, and will be reviewing all the department wages and makes recommendations in open session. So there is more to be discussed in regards to the budget session. Item 4.4, Ashley Graham asked a question about also about the stories of the 9% tax increase. Council and our staff are aware of the neighboring municipalities and can clearly state that we are not like our neighbors. we are mostly an agricultural municipality. We do have some industrial and commercial lands. We are continuing to work with industrial landowners that are working to bring investment in jobs to our community. So it is certainly part of our work. Our staff do work with the landowners to give them advice and try to work with them about bringing jobs to our community. So certainly we are doing that. Number 4-5, Mr. Dave Witzke. He also had a question about the 9% story. And he also questioned in regards to the $200,000 addition to the fire hall in Nottawa. Keep in mind, when you ask about specific projects, it is a budgeted number, not a quote for the work. So council has yet to approve this project in the budget workshop at this time. So for clarity, $200,000 is what is being earmarked in the budget for such a project. It is not expected to cost $200,000, but that's the earmarked amount of money that's put aside for that project, as all budget items bring forward them as projects like that. Item 4-6, Mr. Tim Brockbank brought a question about sidewalks and developers contributing to the sidewalks. So developers in settlement areas are required to build sidewalks, while sidewalks are usually some of the last parts of a project. We have a sidewalk study at Clearview Township that our Deputy Director of Public Works has available. And you can review that on our website, or you can email and ask for some resolution about that. I certainly can advise you that council is very aware of the little portion of sidewalk that you have mentioned in the past, Mr. Brockbank, and that developer is not moving too quickly on their project. So I can certainly appreciate what you're bringing up, and I would suggest that you need to speak to our Deputy Director of Public Works on that question, and we can refer you to him, and we can have him contact you if you wish. You also asked about you called it the Coffee Culture Project. It's not the Coffee Culture Project. Coffee Culture is a wonderful little facility in our community and a business, but the project is actually the Stayner Downtown Revitalization Project. And I spoke to Terry Vachon today, and he's here with us as well. And he reported to me that the project is on budget. However, it is about 1 week behind its completion date. So it's now targeted to be completed December the 10th. That's what he has been advised as the senior manager who communicates to them. So it is on budget and unfortunately about 1 week behind for completion. Number 4.7, Amy Freeman asked a question about financial stability and also about the 9% stories. So it is true that we are financially stable as a municipal government. That is because we do adequate and responsible budgeting and reporting of our financials as we are required to do so. There are other municipalities in Ontario that are not as stable and is not as forthcoming with their financial information. So you asked a question about how we manage our money and how we don't qualify for a lot of grant opportunities. And that's because we actually do a good job with our finances. So that's something that both the administration and council can be pleased about. Item number 4.8 is another question from Mr. Witzke. It's in regards to, he called it time wasted on sidewalk plows. And so I didn't have a lot of time to research this one, but I do have an email that I received only about an hour ago that I could refer to some of the details in that. But Mr. Witzke, it is an interesting point about the drive times and efficiency across our township. It is a large township, and driving vehicles of any type take a long time to get across our municipality. Maybe we need more works yards and depots for equipment to service our residents. I don't know. We'll bring it up in the budget session. But I do know that our staff in their email to me, Mr. Witzke, did advise that they have done this in the past, that they have had the trucks or backhoes meet up with these sidewalk plow and found it to actually be very inefficient use of the time of both operators. So at this time, the best formula for it to be able to deliver it is what's being done today. However, I would advise you, thank you for bringing it up, and they are continuing to review it at every stage. So I look forward to that. Again, I'd like to also emphasize with public participation period, it is very important for the public to remember to use the public participation portal. It's available on our website at clearview.ca, as the portal does produce the actual message that then gets sent to all members of council and all members of our clerk's department. And so they review it and are able to then apply it to the actual agenda. So that's all I have on public participation at this time. However, I see Mr. McKechnie would like to speak. Go ahead, Mr. McKechnie.
Sorry about that, Your Worship. I was trying to get unmuted there. Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for letting me jump in here. And I just wanted to speak up on a couple of comments that you made. I noticed on Facebook, social media, a few people took derogatory shots at council and don't really appreciate it. Some of them implied that council was getting pay raises or giving ourselves pay raises in this budget. And just like to remind anyone that's watching that it's a previous council that determined our rates of pay for this council, and it will be this council that will determine the next council rates of pay. We do not give ourselves pay raises. As a matter of fact, this council voted to eliminate 2 council positions, and that will be a savings of $22,000 per councillor, and that's at least $44,000 a year that we are going to save. That's a 20% reduction in council costs. And we are already well below the pay compared to our surrounding municipalities. Matter of fact, we're about 15% below Collingwood base salary. And the Collingwood councillors also get extra pay for meetings outside of their regular council meetings, which we do not. It's often been said here in Clearview that the current mayor, is doing a full-time job for part-time pay. So I think we've been showing leadership in reducing costs and spending, and I think that we'll continue showing that leadership as we work towards reducing our costs in this lengthy budget as we proceed forward. So I just wanted to get that out there to let a few of the people maybe know that council are doing their best to bring the costs down. And I think we're doing a pretty good job, and the budget process has just started. Thank you.
Right on. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. I wonder if there's a headline there that says something about us being paid 20% less than everybody else. Anyway, thank you for that. I'll
no problem. If there is, you won't see it on Facebook. You won't see it on Facebook.
Well, fair enough. I don't get my news from Facebook, I can assure you that.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So just to wrap this up, members of council, and just to remind the public, by the way, commentary about the budget process is always welcome during our regular council meetings. We hold council workshops to conduct the council workshop. The next council workshop is on the 29th, and then following that, we're scheduling a public meeting, which will be part of a regular council meeting. That may be happening. We have yet to confirm that as a council, that we're having that public meeting in December. We may, given the discussion that we'll have at the 29th, we may push it back to the next opportunity and have yet another workshop. Because it is a very difficult budget, as I said in the opening statements here in the workshop, that it's a very difficult budget for our council. And we have some great decisions yet to make. So we still have to hear from other departments that have not reported in yet. So that's part of the workshop. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. McKechnie, for your comments. Council, we're going to move on in our agenda. We do have a deputation that's trying to join us. It was a notice that came up on my computer screen just a minute ago. We're trying to get Lucy and Trevor. Yes, Madam Clerk. Has our guest joined us yet?
Thank you, Mayor Measures. Yes, Lucy just turned on her camera. The only person we're just trying to promote is Susan, but we can start the presentation as long as Susan's not the key presenter, and I'll start work with her behind the scenes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. We'll get some of those technical things worked out. It's great to. Hello, Lucy. Nice to see you again.
Good evening, Mayor.
And I see Trevor is with you as well. Nice to see you, Trevor McKenzie. Nice to see you. And Chris Crozier, an old friend of ours too. Nice to see you, sir.
Hello.
Good. How about we turn this right over to you, Lucy? It's nice to see you. You have time for a presentation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council and staff for giving us the opportunity to make this deputation today. We have a presentation to make. Does the clerk? There we go. Thank you, clerk. You will see from the first slide that we're here to discuss pre-treatment of effluent. The reason for the deputation is really to to give you a little bit of background on pre-treatment and highlight some of the benefits. I have to say, I've been in the business a long time, and I'm always happy to learn things. I've learned a lot through the last 5 or 6 months on pre-treatment. Next slide, please, clerk. My name is Lucy Stocco, Executive Vice President of Land. Also with me tonight is Trevor McKenzie, our Vice President of Site Servicing, and Chris Crozier, founder of Crozier Engineering, who is a significant part of our team. Also on our team and having some difficulty joining is Susan Zaccaro. She is a Director of Land Development at Tribute. Celeste Phillips is our planner, and the Crozier team is also made up of Dan Piggott, Brendan Hemelin, and we also have Steve O'Brien as an expert in sewage treatment plants. Next slide, please. Tribute is a privately owned builder developer. I always think of us as a family run business because I've been with Tribute for almost 30 years, over 30 years, and it's run by the owner, Al, and his son, Stephen. But we have almost 300 employees, so we're a little bigger than a family run business. We are low-rise builders and developers, high-rise builders and developers. And the reason that is important is that when we acquire land, look at purchasing a land, we see right to the end, right to the construction of the house or the construction of the apartment building and actually finishing the building all the way to customer service. You have a map in front of you, and it's only half of our map. It's the west side of the map. Our office is in Pickering in the region of Durham, and our home is really in Durham. We've built almost 35,000 homes in the GTA, and I would say half of them have been in Durham. Currently, we are developing and building from Lindsay and Coburg all the way over to Shelburne, Fergus, and north to Shelburne. We also have land, other properties in the county of Simcoe. We have land in Springwater and in Agilata, Sorrento, and Colgan, and in Tottenham. The Springwater and Colgan lands are of interest because this presentation is about major infrastructure, and we're building plants and water services in both Colgan and Springwater. Next slide, please. These are photos of some of our houses in Springwater. We are building larger homes there on 50-foot lots and 65-foot lots. And it's a project of almost 700 units. We've built half of the units. It's on Sunnydale Road off Springwater, Vespra. If you have an opportunity to drive by, we're very proud of the project. And again, as I said, we had to build a sewage treatment plant to service about 600 units. Next slide, please. This is the land we're talking about, the Alliance property. We are here as developer builders, and as our consulting team and the staff know, we're not here just to develop and service the first 100 lots. We have to know and understand how we're going to develop and service the last 100 lots. We are currently in due diligence. We are under contract with Alliance, and because of the significance of the infrastructure and the sanitary servicing, this presentation is focusing on servicing. We have been meeting with staff and consultants and appreciate the time and the effort that your staff and your consultants have given us during our due diligence. Clerk, I will have concluding remarks at the end, and now I'm going to turn this over to Chris Crozier. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Mayor Measures and members of council. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight to talk about and introduce the opportunity of pre-treatment to the Creemore wastewater servicing system. As Lucy said, our firm's been involved with studying servicing in Creemore for the better part of 6 months. through the due diligence period. And this has included detailed assessments of the water system and also the wastewater system. Tonight, we're going to focus on wastewater. To begin with, though, it's important to put, I dwelled on this evening's presentation, and I felt it's important to put credit where credit is due. And the concept of pretreatment, I cannot take ownership of that. The concept came from the town's consultants, from Blue Sky Energy, who you've hired in concert with RJ Burnside and Associates. And they were the ones who actually raised this as a valuable consideration. So over the past 6 months, our firm has done an awful lot to advance an understanding about the opportunities and benefits of pretreatment. We've met with suppliers of pretreatment technology. Our staff have visited actual breweries that have pretreatment facilities in place. We've talked to operators all over the country, literally all over the country. We've met with Paul Swindell of Creemore Springs Breweries and talked to him on a number of occasions. And we've met with municipal staff through Zoom and actually in person, which was fantastic. And finally, we've done a detailed hydraulic assessment of the effectiveness, the potential effectiveness of pretreatment. On November the 7th, we made a submission to CAO Ferguson, Mr. Ferguson. We shared that with members of council on the subject of pretreatment, which I'd like to talk about. So what is the issue? The issue is fundamentally the volume and concentration of the effluent from the Creemore Springs Brewery exceeds what the original design parameters anticipated. So the plant was designed, as you know, probably 21 years ago. And the fact is the assumptions that those design engineers made they underestimated the volume and the effluent concentrations. So what's the consequence? The consequence is the wastewater treatment plant is only operating at actually less than 50% of its potential. And you're aware of this. I'm telling you things you already know. So our solution is, not our solution, the solution of the engineers involved in the town is to separate and pre-treat the effluent from Creemore Springs Brewery to regain capacity in the wastewater treatment plant. It's as simple as that. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you some high-level details. Much of this was contained in the submission we made to you. So the first point is about how to separate the wastewater of the Creemore Springs Brewery from that of the domestic wastewater. So presently on this slide, you see the southerly limit of the village of Creemore. And, the purple is the property limits approximately of the brewery. And to the bottom right, shaded in beige, is the limits of the property that contains the wastewater treatment plant. That's municipal property. So presently, wastewater from the Creemore Springs Brewery enters into a sanitary sewer on Elizabeth Street, mixes with the domestic sewer, drains eastward on Elizabeth Street, joins the sewer on Mary Street, and eventually reaches the wastewater treatment plant. That's what's happening today. We're suggesting to intercept the wastewater at the brewery in a pumping station, small pumping station, and to pump it in a small force main. The size is irrelevant, but the point is along Elizabeth Street and down Mary Street to a separate facility. And we've identified that with a blue box on the property, on the Creemore Spring, on the municipal property. We believe there to be sufficient room to house that. Clearly, detailed design will confirm that, but from early estimations, we believe we could fit the facility and the necessary tankage on the municipal property. That's the concept of separation. Next slide, please. So the objective of pre-treatment is to reduce the nutrients from the Creemore Springs Brewery to near domestic levels. That was sort of what we posed to the suppliers. How do we do that? Well, we need to build a separate treatment facility located at the wastewater treatment plant. We evaluated a number of technologies, and by no means is this an exhaustive list. We talked about 2 or 3 in the submission we made to you, There certainly are more than that we've learned of, but the modeling we've done confirms that they have the ability to reduce the nutrient loading by 90% or better. And this is even far better than what was originally the design assumption. So this is a good thing. So the results, what are the results? Well, first of all, what's it going to cost is always an important question. We've estimated between $2.5 and $3.5 million. Obviously, that is assuming we're not buying land. Important point. What do we also expect to see? Well, we expect to see capacity regained in the wastewater treatment plant. We can't guarantee the plant will operate as it was originally intended, but certainly there'll be an improvement. And from our modeling and from the counsel we're getting from our wastewater expert, he believes this will be significant benefit to the municipality to regain that capacity in the current plant. And finally, because we're separating the wastewater, the Creemore Springs wastewater from the domestic wastewater, that gives greater flexibility to the municipality on how to deal with the sludge, because the wastewater from the the sludge from the Creemore brewery is different than the domestic wastewater, and it can be, in essence, handled differently. Next slide, please. I'm almost done. I know time is of the essence here. Just quickly, benefits. I mean, first and foremost, maximizing getting the most out of your current infrastructure has to be in everyone's interest. And we see this as reestablishing capacity in the wastewater treatment plant. Secondly, we are fully aware of the ongoing maintenance problems you've had with respect to clogging of your membranes. We've talked to Mike Ron and Jeff Langlois considerably about this. We understand that. We anticipate this to make a significant improvement to that situation. Thirdly, we see the pretreatment as allowing the envisioned growth to proceed. We understand that the work that the township is doing on replacing membranes, which is really just a maintenance issue, may gain another 100 units of capacity, but that's far less than the potential of that plant. And finally, and maybe most importantly, your worship and council, is that putting in the pretreatment, we believe, will inform the future design of the plant. And that could be most important. Final slide, if you don't mind. So I'm going to read this because this is very important, if you will. We've made a submission to you, and these are, in essence, what we hope to achieve out of our delegation today and the submission. Tribute requests that the municipality endorse the principle of pretreatment, and that CAO Ferguson confer with staff and council and respond to the material submitted specifically. Number one, the review and concurrence of the hydraulic modeling. And I've already had discussions with Jeff Langlois along those lines, which were good. There's some questions, but that's fine. That's part of the process. Secondly, confirmation that the township will support the advancement of the establishment of pretreatment on the existing Creemore wastewater treatment plant property as a developer-driven activity. And that's the important word here. Driven by Tribute. Subject, not obviously, to all necessary approvals and Ministry of the environmental assessment requirements, clearly in concert with the municipality. Thirdly, financial assistance from the township with a cost recovery program associated with the pretreatment facility from future developers and Creemore Springs Brewery. Fourth point, confirmation that Tribute putting up the money to advance this technology will have a first right of use to any spare capacity realized by the pretreatment. And the hope is that the pretreatment will be able to support a first phase of 250 units. Obviously, caveat, if the pretreatment was only able to achieve 200, we wouldn't be asking for 250, obviously. And the final point, not added in my letter, but it's very important to Tribute, and I think Lucy may add to this at the end, is that Tribute wishes to be afforded the opportunity to be involved in the future design of the phase 2 expansion of the plant. And what I mean by that is working with Burnside and Mike Ron and others in the expansion of the plant. And we know the expansion of the plant is necessary for the full build out of the Alliance lands. We know that. So that's my submission this evening. Thank you for the time. And I believe Lucy has a few final remarks.
Yes, please leave the last slide on. I will be very quick, Mayor and members of council. Just to finish off on the last point, the phase 2 plant is important to us as well. As I said originally, we need to know how we service and develop the first 100 lots, and we also need to know how to develop and service the last 100 lots. So continuing from pre-treatment to phase 2 is also very important to us. Mayor and members of council, while this presentation has been primarily about infrastructure, we will be working with community. We understand the history. We've read the history of Cara and the local residents. We will be speaking to residents. We will continue our discussions with Creemore Springs, who've been very supportive to date, and continue our discussions with staff and consultants. So we wanted to take this opportunity to share with you this information tonight. And as our request is to have council endorse the principle of pre-treatment. Thank you, Mayor and members of council.
All right, well, thank you very much, Lucy. It's great that you did come to council and make this presentation, and I'm happy to say that we're receiving and seeing this information, and for sure, it is something that I'm aware of, and I know that members of council have reviewed the Blue Sky report that you mentioned, Chris, and so certainly the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant in Creemore is literally on our radar, along with other projects of infrastructure across all of beautiful Clearview Township. But it's certainly one of them that we have on our radar. Perhaps if I can, before I go to any members of council, to the CAO and to Mr. Ron, I think you're here somewhere, Mike. I'm just wondering, just a comment about our wastewater treatment plant. You know, it was mentioned by Chris, it was built around 2002, something like that. Was there any opportunity or any thought given to the design of it or it actually being expanded at that time? Was it looked at what expansion it could look like in that existing footprint where it is right now? So I think I'll go right to Mike on that, John, since kind of new here. Mike, what do you think?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the plant's phase 1 capacity is 860 cubic meters and expandable to 1,400 cubic meters based on the assimilative capacity of the Mad River. That's how much sewage that river can take, being a cold water stream.
Right.
As I recall, that expansion was going to require a concrete tank and some extra membranes. However, as the Blue Sky report has indicated, that technology was what that technology could do 20 years ago. They have changed many aspects of how that technology is incorporated into a plant now. You know, council will recall a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Tribute, we're looking at some outside of the box ideas in Creemore for sewer plants, and we would be including this into our budget for council's consideration. And it is an item in the budget. Oh, okay. We do need to work with Creemore Springs to figure out what their future targets are. I think this is a fantastic suggestion. I do think we need to see what Creemore Springs is doing first and see how we can incorporate this into the ultimate solution, because as you know, as we work through the guide, so to speak, that Blue Sky has given us, it's laid out pretty well. So we're following council's direction from October 2000 on how to get this plant back to capacity. So now, instead of, you know, phase 1 capacity, we will be looking at phase 2 capacity. Quite happy, you know, we've heard great things about Lucy and her team. Happy to work with any suggestions that will help us make that plant work better and help the town prosper.
Right. All right, thanks, Michael. That did help me anyway. I tell you what, Lucy, I think I'll ask council if there's any questions they have, and then we'll continue. Members of council, do you have any questions from the presentation or the commentary from Mike on there? I know it's so much fun talking about wastewater, isn't it? It's one of the, we talk about it a lot at council or at the table here. I know it's unfortunate. Yeah, I do have Councillor Patterson, if I can. Go ahead, Mr. Patterson. I think you're muted, Tom. Tom, I think you're muted. There you go.
Thanks, Mayor. I've had the opportunity to talk to Lucy last week, and so my questions have essentially been answered with the discussion I had with her and what was presented tonight. I do want to say that, as I said before, that this council has not been fully briefed on the options before us. So this has been helpful in terms of knowing it's early days, and it helps to get the view of the developer, I guess, as early as possible when we're in this planning stage. So I appreciate you coming. I would stress, as the ward councillor, to be patient. We work very hard in our community to come up with the right answer. That's why we lean heavily on our staff. And so I would encourage you to spend the time you have to work with the staff and come back when we have a solution that the staff can endorse with your requests. And I would also say, it doesn't really need saying, but especially if the brewery is listening, the Creemore Springs Brewery is a very important part of our community and a very good partner. So I'm glad to see that all the key players are working together. But we're in listening mode right now. And so we appreciate having a little bit more to think about. And thanks for coming.
Absolutely, Tom. And to your comment about Creemore Springs, it's also a significant employer in our community. And economically, we want to maintain that we keep those jobs in our community. That's where our focus is here all the time. Lucy, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. I just want to acknowledge Susan joined us. Hi, Susan. I know that you were in the wings waiting, trying to get in. So welcome aboard. Go ahead, Lucy.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make one comment, but I do want to say Creemore Springs, we understand the significance of Creemore Springs to the community and
Absolutely.
that we are working with them. But the comment I wanted to make was to Mike Ron, and the first step or the next step, very, very happy to hear that you're putting an item in your budget. And I understand those budget discussions are ongoing now. So it's a great first step to put the item in your budget. Thank you very much, Mayor and members of council.
Excellent. Excellent. I'd like to go to Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Ferguson, you've been discussing with this group already, and you've seen this presentation. Do you have any questions or any ideas of the next steps that you feel municipality can move on this?
Well, there's things that we're going to need to get clarification on. I think Tribute's aware of that as well. And we're dealing with some property owners in the area that have future development interests as well. And we want to make sure that we're involving them in our discussions. And that's the only thing I have to say right now. We've got a good relationship with Tribute and we look forward to working with them.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, that's great. If there's nothing further, I'll just say that, we've got a great history here in Clearview of working with developers, both individually and in groups where we have to deal with these wastewater and water issues, infrastructure issues. It's not sexy stuff, but it's got to get done. So I appreciate that we're here having this discussion here, but I would say we need to move this to the staff and get the staff to continue to work with you and your professionals, and we'll see what report we can come back to council with some more information. Is that okay?
That would be great,
Sure.
Mayor. And it's anticipated that staff would want to comment, your staff and your consultants. Any direction, Mayor, if I might be so bold, as to timing when that report might be able to come back, since you asked?
Sure. Council is obviously quite engaged in our budget process right now. We have, Madam Clerk has one more regular scheduled council meeting in 2021. Although we could have alternate council meetings come at any time if we need to have special meetings. So it would be up to the engineers and the staff to put together a report that council can receive. I wouldn't be able to give you any real timeline on what our expectation here is, but I would say that to the CAO, do you have any idea on what level of work or involvement you might have to get
Well,
this
we want to reach out.
back
we
to the
want to reach out-
table?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. We want to reach out to Tribute as soon as possible. We have some questions and some maybe some suggestions that we might be able to move some things forward. So we want to reach out as soon as possible. I know Jeff and Mike, they'll be wanting to dive into the numbers in detail and get back. So we don't plan on sitting on our hands. We want to get back as soon as possible. I can't speak for our hired consultants. I think we may be able to have it back in December at the next meeting, but I want to confirm with them first.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ron.
Your worship, we're negotiating with Creemore Springs on the overstrength agreement currently. Until that's settled, so to speak, we really need to know where Creemore Springs is going to be at, you know, in the coming years before we can select a pre-treatment option for the brewery, right? We need to know what their effluent's going to be. I think that's going to carry us into the new year. We've had some recent correspondence with them. The agreement is, of course, a legal matter, so you know there's that aspect of it too before we can finalize that, and then that agreement will have to come to council. So that will be kind of a trigger for council to know once that agreement's brought to council for approval. Then from there we can look at what could be pre-treated and what those options look like in much more detail.
All right. Well, I encourage you, Mr. Ron, to work with the CAO and the clerk to try to get something to us and council can review it. Thank you, Mr. Ron. So Lucy, thank you very much for joining us and bringing your team. We appreciate having you here. That's like I said, it's not often we see individual developers right here. Oftentimes as a council and as a group of staff here, they often work with multiples at the same time working on infrastructure. So it's nice to have you here to drop by. So thanks for coming by and seeing us. All right. All the best. Thanks, Trevor. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, council, we're going to move on in our agenda. Oh, excuse me. Item 6 is our public meeting, and there is no public meeting at this time. So we're going to move right to approval of the minutes of our council meeting. So that's item 7. Recommendation be it resolved that council of the township of Clearview hereby approve the minutes of the council meeting as presented, and they are for November the 8th, 2021, and November the 15th, 2021, which was our budget workshop meeting number 1. Can I have a mover and seconder on the minutes? That'd be Mr. Broderick and Ms. Deneen. And is there any questions on those 2 separate minutes? Oh, seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. And that carries unanimous. And I just want to acknowledge, thank you, Deputy Mayor Burton, for conducting the meeting on November the 8th. Good job. Council, any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. I'm going to go to communications from the mayor. We did have a closed session. There is no report to be given from our closed session as we have confidential information that we've been dealing with. So there's no report at this time underneath communications from the mayor. There is an item number 2, which is My Friend's House request to raise a flag in honor of International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Would anybody like to speak to that? No? Okay. I just want to acknowledge that I'm wearing the My Friend's House purple tie that I purchased from them a couple of years ago when they were running this program, and it was my honor to participate in a flag raising on your behalf and on behalf of the citizens of Clearview to support their efforts. If there's no objection. Seeing none, we're going to read the resolution. Be it resolved that council of the township of Clearview hereby support the request from My Friend's House to raise their cottage flag in honor of International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and that the flag raising take place at the Stainer Emergency Hub on Thursday, November the 25th, 2021. Time to be determined. Can I have a mover and seconder? Mr. Broderick. Mr. Walker. Any questions? One thing I will do is once I do know the time, I will immediately send out an email and advise all of you if you're welcome to join us. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, council. Oh, we have yes, we do have the CUPE Ontario concerns regarding the OMERS investment performance. It's an interesting read. Anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay, and then their OMERS employer bulletin was received also. Any questions? All right. Council, I'll read the recommendation then. Recommendation be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive the communications from the mayor for information. I have a mover and seconder. Deneen and Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor and Deneen. Okay. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Council, we're moving on to page 4. County reports for information. Deputy Mayor, we have a fantastic report here about the bursary program. Council may recall we participated in the Simcoe County bursary program, where we support with some financial contribution towards the fund that supports the bursary awards program for students. And we do have one student from our community, Gabrielle Haynes, who has the recipient of the award. Deputy Mayor, I don't know Gabrielle. Do you know Gabrielle? Any chance?
I don't, but I'm thrilled to see that that a resident of Clearview received a bursary, and we've been supporting the bursary for a while now. It's just wonderful to see it's coming back to within our own community.
That's great. That's great. You know, as our community gets bigger and bigger, there's a lot of people in our community we don't know. So it's I'm not surprised. So anyway, that's great. I'm glad to see that we have a Clearview resident receiving that. And so council, if there's nothing further from county reports, Deputy Mayor Burton, we have a meeting tomorrow with county. It's a joint meeting of committee of the whole and county council. So it's another full agenda there tomorrow. All right, let's move on to our council reports for ward reports. I'm going to start with Councillor Walker, and then it'll be Broderick and the Deputy Mayor. Mr. Walker, you get to go first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a whole lot other than attended the Stainer Remembrance Day service, and there was a good number of people attending that service, and it was actually a good day for Remembrance Day, and just say the good number of people there. And the other thing was participate in the budget meeting #1, and that's it for me at this point.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Walker, and thank you for mentioning Remembrance Day. I do want to acknowledge the here in Stainer, the Legion members did a great job organizing and coordinating the whole event. And I also acknowledge through the CAO that we had some of our staff here at the township also assist with that event. So I appreciate that very much. Nice to see you there, sir. Mr. Broderick, you're next, then the Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Deneen. Hi, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. November the 9th, attended the Clearview Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. Also the Creemore BIA on the 9th. On the 11th, attended the Remembrance Day service at the Stainer Cenotaph, and also the Remembrance Day presentation at the arena. November the 17th, attended the Clearview Chamber of Commerce meeting. And that is it for me, Your Worship.
All right, thank you very much, John. Good to see you. Deputy Mayor Burton, you're next, then Councillor Deneen, and then Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to sort of report a bit of county in here as well as at the same time. So the mayor and I did attend the last county meeting, and we did pass the budget of 2% in principle. It still has to be ratified, but it was basically in principle. There was a suggestion from staff that we should go to 3% just to get ahead for in reserves and that, but 2% seemed to be the way it went, and that's coming up. And then this week I attended, or last Thursday and Wednesday, Thursday, I attended 2 NEC meetings. Well, the first one was a policy meeting where the commission gets to review some of the policies. And one of the issues came up was the motion that I brought forward about 3-4 months ago, and it was brought forward under the policy meeting about municipalities not having to wait the 10-year review before they can apply to have I'm going to use the word zoning change. So if we want to expand our settlement areas into our settlement areas and not part of the NEC, then we have to wait 10 years to do that. And when that comprehensive review comes up. That was brought forward, and my motion was put forward that the chair writes to the minister and let them know that we have concerns about that, and other members from other municipalities spoke up in favor of that as well. So that's what happened there. The other thing I'd like to mention at the NEC, these are quite extensive meetings. These are meetings that go on for 8 hours. We start at 9 in the morning or 9:30, and we go to 4:30. They're all day long meetings. We're dealing with applications for development permits, and we deal with appeals. The thing that I find interesting is like every month, 13 pages of appeals. I'm talking simple applications that were put forward that the director had the authority to approve, didn't have to come to the commission, and they're still being appealed. And several of them are in Clearview. There are several appeals going on. I just thought I'd mention that. And I think that's been enough for today.
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate your work on the NEC. It's a lot of work to be on council and county, but that's just as much work too at the NEC. Thank you. Councillor Deneen, you're next, then McKechnie, and then Lamers. Go ahead, Phyllis.
Thank you, Your Worship. On November 10th, we had the Nottawa Hall meeting. We're quite excited to announce that we are open for rentals. Come one, come all. Everybody's really happy to get back to that. November 11th, I was honored to lay the wreath on behalf of Clearview Township at the Collingwood Cenotaph, and the Legion people just had it run just like a fine-tuned machine. It really went well. I didn't trip. I didn't knock the rest of the wreaths over. I think it was a success all the way around. I just wanted to make a note that we did have the budget meeting, and on Saturday and Sunday, I had the pleasure of attending the regional Silver Stick Championships at the Collingwood facilities. And the little guys, well, they aren't so little anymore. The ones I went to see, U13 and AE3, they won their regional championship. Now they go on to Pelham, Ontario for the international championships. And there's a couple of young fellows from Nottawa School that are on that team. Congratulations to Nash and Hunter. And I just wanted to make a note too, just in case the mayor forgets, to everyone in Nottawa, the snowflake at the hall is going to temporarily disappear on the weekend of December 4th and 5th, but it will be back. He can elaborate on that if he wishes. And thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Deneen. That is correct. The beautiful snowflake, and there's stars and deers, et cetera, that are spread across our community. They're being installed right now, actually. It's part of a program that we run, Rural Lights and Winter Nights, and it's a great program. So we're going to borrow this snowflake for a couple of days, let's just say. That's what we're doing. Thank you, Councillor Deneen, and thank you for representing us at the Collingwood Cenotaph. Mr. McKechnie, you're next, then Mr. Lamers, and then Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, I had a number of meetings with residents, and of course, the budget meeting. Also on November the 11th, I was honored to lay the township wreath at the Singhampton Cenotaph. And I think like the other cenotaphs, there was a good turnout. And first time in the 3 years that I've been on council that there has been no snow up there. And other than the wind, it was quite a pleasant day. I'd like to give a little shout out to Myler and Loretta's. Every year they put on a spread of food, lunch for everybody that's attended the cenotaph, and there was probably a good 50 people, and probably about 25, 30 of them went back to Myler and Loretta's. We had soup and sandwiches and coffee, tea, little cakes and everything. was a nice little spread, nice social time there. So, and that was donated by the restaurant. So thanks very much to them. And it was a great event, and I was honored to lay the wreath. Thank you.
Thank you also for doing that, Councillor McKechnie. That's excellent, and appreciate the contribution from Mother and the Redis. Mr. Lamers, you're next, and then Mr. Patterson. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, November 11th, you attended the New Law Legion. We had a nice crowd of 100 plus attend our service there. The Legion put on a good do, and I had the honor of laying the Province of Ontario wreath, and I was also attended by other staff. And then on the 15th, we had a budget meeting, first budget meeting. And now, if anybody's noticed, the flags are at half mast at all the county yards. One of our mechanics at the yard had suddenly passed on November 15th in Midhurst. Thank you.
Thank you very much for acknowledging that, and thank you for mentioning it tonight. Thank you, Councillor Lamers. I appreciate that. Councillor Patterson, you're next.
Thank you. Well, our community, as all of them do, communities continue to be engaged in council business and the business of the municipality. And I did attend a meeting with some of the residents who are concerned about the 26, 27, and 91 project, the potential hearing with the Niagara Escarpment Hearing Office. And also it did have several discussions, mostly on the phone, several emails on the Collingwood Street Bridge. So people are paying attention to the business of council, and then of late, more and more questions on the budget, which was evidenced today in the beginning of our meeting. So continue to spend the time talking to people, and they I'm hoping that when the pandemic is over, we'll see more seats in the council chamber when the room is open to everyone. So all the discussions have been good, I've been concerned, and so I appreciate the conversations I've had with them. That's my report.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Patterson, and all the best. I just have a couple of small things to mention. Just, it was already mentioned about the snowflake. I would suggest people make sure that they are available for the Santa Claus parade, both in Stayner and in Creemore. And we'll see you on Saturday morning, Council, to join us on the floats, both in Stayner and in the afternoon down in Creemore. It'll be a lot of fun. We have arranged to use the recreation van. So we're going to use the van that's fully deckled to promote our various events that happen in our community, in great anticipation and hope that 2022 will have lots of events. That's what I'd like to see. So anyway, we're gonna do that. So hopefully people will be there for that. I do want to. You want to just? What was I going to say? I was just forgotten now. I wrote it down, and I've left the paper in my car. So if I think of it, I'll come back to it later on. Nevertheless, thank you, Councillor Deneen, for pointing out that I do become forgetful. All right, Council, we're going to move on then from our ward reports to department reports, where we have community services. So we have first item is CS 055-2021, proposed zoning bylaw amendment. It's in regards to 10581 County Road 10, number 1281528 Ontario Incorporated. I see Rosalind Workman has popped up there along with Mara Burton. Nice to see you this evening. I will read the recommendation and look for a mover and seconder. Recommendation: be it resolved, Council of the Township Clearview hereby one, receive the report CS 055-2021 report for information and dated November 22nd, 2021. And item 2, pass zoning bylaw amendment to the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw 06-54, being bylaw 21102 for the lands known as 10581 County Road 10 and legally described as north part of lot 20 ESR concession 5, formerly Sunnydale, now in the Township of Clearview. Okay, mover and seconder, and then we'll hear from our staff. Mr. Broderick, second. Seconded by Mr. Walker. Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Hello, Roz. Why don't you tell us all about this?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Measures, and good evening, Council. This is application. Well, we have actually received 3 applications on this property. The first was an official plan amendment. Tonight, we're considering the zoning bylaw amendment, and there will also be a consent application. You may recall that back in March 8th of 2021, we held a public meeting for the official plan amendment, as well as for the zoning bylaw amendment. And the application, in essence, the proposal will result in a severed lot or surplus farmhouse, which measures approximately 0.41 hectares in size and roughly has 80 meters of frontage on County Road 10. The lot would contain an existing single detached dwelling with a septic and a well. And then the retained parcel will obviously be the agricultural lands, and that's proposed to be about approximately 36.93 hectares in size with 240 meters of frontage on County Road 10. And this will remain as farmland. The application before you tonight, as I mentioned, it was discussed in length at a public meeting on March the 8th of 2021. And it will consider looking at the existing northern side yard setback, which is 1.5 meters. It will look at rezoning the rest of the remnant lands or the agricultural lands to not permit any residential uses in the future. And this will implement what the provincial policy statements require us to do, as well as our official plan amendment. And it will also look at a definition for a surplus farmhouse, which we don't currently have in our zoning bylaw. Just some significant dates for you to remember. July 26, 2021, Council did adopt our official plan amendment for this property. And on September 28, 2021, Simcoe County approved your adopted official plan amendment. And that's why staff can now come forward with the implementing zoning bylaw. A final date is that staff are anticipating taking the consent application to the Committee of Adjustment for December the 8th of 2021. So with that being said, I'm open for any questions that Council may have.
Thank you, Roz. Is there anybody on Council who have any questions about the report? Yes, Mr. McKechnie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Roz. So Roz, when this came forward, forget when it was, back in the spring, maybe, I believe I voted against this, but what you're saying now is that all the conditions have been met and there's no, the conditions as far as the township is concerned have been met and the county's conditions have been met. And is that what you're saying with this now?
Through Mayor Measures to Councillor McKechnie, thank you for the question. So what I'm saying is that the official plan amendment that came forward that was adopted by Council went forward and was approved by the county, and therefore staff now are required to bring forward the second application, which would implement that adopted official plan amendment. It means that there were no appeals to that official plan amendment, and I mean, because the applicants have made that application and have been waiting patiently for us to hear their zoning. You're correct. I mean, it's not that, I mean, I guess you voted against it, but it's just that everything that we work towards has been adopted. So if that's what you mean by the conditions.
Yeah, I think so. I at the time when I voted against it, it was because we didn't have the official plan amended and such, but it seems like everything's all our all the ducks are in a row now. Everything's fallen into place. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I see the Deputy Mayor has his hand up. Go ahead, Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship, and maybe if I could just simplify things for Councillor McKechnie. All municipalities, when they want to make an amendment to their official plan, the council passes that motion to make those amendments to the official plan, but the approval authority is the upper tier government. So the province has appointed the county to be the approval agency. So what's happened is it's come to county, it's been approved. So all official plan amendments from many of the municipalities come to county for approval. Not all get approved. Sometimes they don't get approved, but in the majority they do get approved. And this one was approved at county, and the mayor and I were present when we voted in favor of that.
There you go. You're absolutely right. And thank you for that. Anybody else with any questions to Roz about this? Roz, I have really no problem with the report whatsoever. I would have a question for Mara, if I may. Mara, could you join me for a minute? The one sort of statement that still sticks out with me is the letter in this application. When reviewing the documents again, I saw the letter that came from Mr. Goodfellow. And he raised a good point, in my opinion, and that is that, well, we're doing this for this particular project, for this one area, this one property. Is this not something that we should just pass as a policy, that we can deal with this? Or do landowners that want to separate a house from a farm property like this want or have to continue to make individual applications to amend our bylaws? Like, should it not just be a policy, Mara?
Thank you, Your Worship. So currently the official plan, other than the site-specific one that we're dealing with tonight, currently the official plan says that you have to be abutting the property.
Right.
And so people still can do it, but if they want to do something that doesn't conform to the official plan, then they have to do an official plan amendment. When these applicants came forward, we advised them that we are working on our new official plan and that we're going to be looking at the policy in the new official plan for across the entire township.
Okay.
So we haven't done that yet. These folks weren't interested in waiting for that process. And so they made application. We can't control whether someone makes an application or not makes an application. So we had to deal with their application, but we weren't prepared to deal with this across the entire township because it was a site-specific application. And because of that, really the people that we would normally notify are those within 120 meters of the property and things like that. And so they made their application as a site-specific application, not to amend all of the official plan.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's not as though we're not going to look at that, but it's just kind of premature. And we certainly knew, we really only had a couple of choices. One was basically to approve it and put in a lot of policy to make sure that this is site specific. And that is what Rosalind has done. And then the other option is to deny it. And we really weren't prepared to deny it based on the characteristics of this particular application.
Right. Okay. Well, it answers my question that we're continuing to look at this, and it will be something. It may very well be something that we'll discuss in a full review of the entire plan. So I appreciate that. All right, well, that helps answer that question for me. Any other members with any discussion or question? All right, thank you, staff. I'm prepared to call the motion then. I'll call it. All those in favor? And that casts unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to Committee of Adjustment. I'm not sure if there's any staff report on this necessary, but we'll read this. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one receive CS 058 2021 Committee of Adjustment for November 2021 for information. And is there a mover and seconder? Mr. Deputy Mayor and Mr. Broderick. And any questions or comments? Mr. Deputy Mayor, I guess it was on the 10th of November when you held that meeting. Is So,
That's correct.
yeah, only a couple of items.
Yeah, it was one of our longer ones, though. It was. It was just the night you had 2 items, and it became quite extensive.
All right.
So.
All right. Okay. There was no comments then, so we'll carry on. Thank you, members of council. You've heard the motion. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Excuse me. Get up a cough here. All right. Here's a terrific topic that we've talked about here at this council table. CS 058-2021, the proposed zoning bylaw amendments to regulate cannabis cultivation and cannabis production facilities. Recommendation, be it resolved that council of the Township of Clearview hereby 1, receive report CS 059-2021, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to regulate cannabis cultivation and cannabis production facilities dated November 22, 2021 for information. Is there anything further? I'll look for a mover and seconder. Mr. McKechnie, Ms. Deneen, any questions? Or actually, Mara Burton, we've talked about this a lot. Do you want to briefly review and then I'll go to some questions? Mara?
Certainly, thank you, Your Worship. So this is essentially the same report that you saw a couple of weeks ago, but for the record, we did want to let you know of the changes. There were some changes that were made. There were very minor changes that were made in the morning of that council meeting of November 8th, but we wanted to point them out to you. So they are in item 18 of the report, basically whereby when we had the discussion about cannabis cultivation outdoors, what we had said is that it be not be in a greenhouse or a hoop house. So we didn't specifically say, so we wanted to clarify that in the zoning bylaws. So we did that. We also wanted to clarify that the 800 square meters of outdoor growing was per lot. So you couldn't have a number of 800 square meter compounds. We also added cemetery to the definitions. These things were noted in the report, but it did somehow not find its way in the bylaw. So in the final review of that, we caught that. And then the last thing was also the outdoor growing for for Agri Farm that was identified in the report, but didn't find its way into the bylaw. So just some minor tweaks there, and the bylaw is on the agenda tonight for council's consideration.
Okay. All right, Tom, I think I saw your card. Is there anybody else who has any questions or comments? Go ahead, Tom, with your question.
Yeah, just I'm inclined to approve this, but I do it because I think there are still some open areas of concern, perhaps even dispute, in terms of the jurisdiction between Health Canada and the municipality. You know, given the guideline that Health Canada says that part of the licensing agreement is that they abide by municipal bylaws. I'm also under the understanding that a municipal bylaw can't override the right provided by a Health Canada senior government regulation. That's where my question is coming from. So it relates to the question I asked the last time we looked at this, is the combination of medicinal and micro-growing limits. I gather that in my mind, they're two separate. One is Health Canada provides the ability for individuals or through an agency on a farm to grow. It's the area that they have to grow is based on a prescription that they have, and the micro cultivator has the 4 we're providing 4 of the 200 square meter opportunities. There's a sub question in that too. I'll come back to it. So the way I read this bylaw is that it's the combination of the medical and micro cultivation to a total of 800 square meters per property is what is at concern here. I see them as, my understanding is they're two separate things. So is it true? And if we see it as a combination of both up to 800 square meters, what would the remedy be for a microprocessor that has both licenses and sees them as independent, regulated pieces of property?
Ms. Burton.
Thank you. Through Mayor Measures to Councillor Patterson. So the 800, from a planning point of view, we deal with the amount of cannabis being grown, whether or not they have a micro license or whether or not they have a prescription license. So they, under Health Canada, they have to abide by the municipal regulations. So for instance, if I have a growing license for 1,200 plants, I can't do that in my residential backyard. I have to do that where it's allowed to be grown. So if my license is for more than 800 square meters, then I may need to grow on more than one property in order to obtain that much cannabis, which is a substantial amount of cannabis for a single prescription nonetheless, but that's what the situation would be. So if I am growing on my property, it could be either I have 2 micro licenses at 400 each on an agricultural or rural property. It could be that I have a prescription for up to 800 square meters, or it could be any combination of the two. Does that answer your question?
It answers, it says clearly what we think it is. So, and I understand the dilemma that we're put in here when some of the people that will be making applications see it differently. I think you've had some correspondence to that regard. So I guess my question is, if we went ahead with this, what recourse is available to a microprocessor who may want to come to us and want a site-specific amendment to our zoning bylaw?
Yes, they would need to apply for a zoning bylaw amendment. And then we would be able to look at their property on a site-specific case, a case-by-case basis. What is the merits of that property? What are the distances of that property to other sensitive uses? How much are they doing? That sort of thing. So, and of course, site planning as well would come into it. We may require a study, like an odor study. We may require buffering. We may require a particular amount of odor abatement measures, things like that. So it would be a site-specific zoning amendment that they would need to make.
So one last point on this one is, so every situation is different, thus the site-specific amendment request. However, can you give the public that may be listening or coming in to ask, what criteria would we use if it's different than the criteria we're now doing to write the bylaw? In other words, if I'm a micro grower right now, a cultivator, and there's 2 examples. I have, if they have we have a micro cultivator right now, and let's say he has three licenses, 600 square feet, and he's also growing what we would calculate to be, let's say 200, just for sake of easy numbers, 200 medicinal plants. So we would see that as he's topped out at the 800 square meters on one property. He wants to come in and get one more micro license that he believes the bylaw permits him to have, the 4 of 200. And we might say to them, well, no, you've exceeded the 800, you'll have 1,000 now. Will we listen to remedies to allow them to have 1,000 square meters under certain conditions in a site-specific amendment?
So anyone is capable, certainly, of making, like, it is their right to make an application that can come before council. And then the planning department would review that application. We would give them some direction as to what would be required in order to support their application that would be different from what, if council approves the bylaw tonight, that what is different from what council has adopted. So this is our starting point. This is our baseline. If they want to vary from that baseline, then they would have to justify that. So that may mean that they need to provide us with what type of building they're looking at, how many square feet of processing are they looking at, how far are they from sensitive uses, a whole host of things. How are they buffering? There may be restrictions on size. We really would have to, when we do pre-consultation, we look at every pre-consultation on its own application. So I can't say what we would require. We have to look at each one on its own.
Okay. One small clarification, if I may. I asked this before, so obviously I wasn't convinced when I got the answer. My understanding still is that when you get a license as a micro cultivator, the 200 square meters is what you can grow, and it has to have a fence around it. If you get, so it's not a combination of four micro cultivation licenses for a total of 800 square feet and then put a fence around it. It's the multiple of 4 separately fenced 200 square meters plots.
That is correct for the micro. Right. If it's a prescription that allows them to grow whatever number of plants, if they can grow that many number of plants within 800 square meters, and Health Canada requires that to be fenced as one larger compound, then that's Health Canada's requirements. So for us, it's 800 square meters is the maximum, whether or not it's 4 200 square meter compounds, each individually fenced, or whether it's some combination of that or the other prescription license. They still have to meet Health Canada requirements. Our requirements are the maximum 800 square meters. However they divide that up, it's really up to them.
Including having 3 micro cultivation licenses and 1 micro processing, non-volatile?
The processing is not allowed. It's only the cultivation. If they're going to do processing, then they need to do a zoning amendment, because we only allow processing in the AGI. Right. Micro cultivation is not processing. It is growing.
So that's the issue we had in section 236. I think it was 8. It doesn't matter, the reference, but that I understand what you're saying. All right. So there's still provision there, given good, valid concerns, justifications to get a site-specific amendment as well.
I believe I understand what you're saying, and I would say yes.
All right. No commitments, just site by site is what you're saying. I understand that. All right. Thank you for being patient with these questions.
I think it's important to note that any type of application by any grower, cultivator, would actually have to be in written form and have it clearly spelled out on paper so that they can give an answer. I think it's actually admirable that Mara Burton's able to answer the questions posed by Mr. Patterson in a verbal way here, just to keep track of it all. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else with any other questions on this discussion? Anybody else? Okay. Council, this has been a very long process, and I'm actually pleased that we're finally getting to it. I also acknowledge that we had to extend our interim control bylaw because we needed a little bit of extra time, and I believe it's paid off that we have a good document here in front of us. So, Council, I'm prepared to call it unless there's anything further. Council, let me call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Again, good work, Mara, your team, and a lot of work went into that. Boy, good job. And by the way, and thank you for the input from the public, because we did have significant input from the public on this to help make this one work. So that was good. I appreciate that. All right, Council, moving on to page 5. CS 060 2021 report to declare surplus and convey municipally owned lands being part of Siddell Drive on Plan 51M 541, Plan 51R 43215. Situated within the draft plan approved Manor Town Homes Inc. plan of subdivision. I'll read the recommendation fully and then I'll ask for mover and seconder. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one receive CS 060-2021 for information and excuse me. Item 2 approves bylaw 21-111 authorizing the mayor and clerk to declare surplus and convey municipally owned lands described as parts of lot 5, 6 and part of block 23 and part of Siddell Drive plan 51M 541 being parts 2, 3, 4, 5 and 7 on plan 51R 43215 Township of Clearview. Okay, mover and seconder. Mr. Broderick and Mr. Lamers. Mr. Broderick, Mr. Lamers. Hello, Nick. I see
Hello.
This is nice to see you join us. This is a very interesting report. This is roads that actually don't even exist and aren't going to exist because there's a whole new plan coming, right?
Correct.
Okay. What do you need to tell us, Nick?
Well, I try to be as descriptive as possible in my report, so I'll try and be brief, but I know when we're dealing with descriptions and legal parts and numbers on plans and reference plans, it gets a bit confusing. But basically, this report right now is dealing with the Manortown homeland. So this is located in the east end of Stayner. So as the developers working through their final approval process, so from draft plan approval through the final, there's a portion of there's a previous plan of subdivision on the property known as Siddell Estates. As a part of that, the reason we own the lands was as a part of that original plan, those lands were conveyed to the municipality. However, those lands have, that plan of subdivision is no longer a plan of subdivision. The lands have been deemed together. So the new current owner of the property, who had received draft plan approval, is seeking to move forward through final approval of their current draft plan. And to do so, they require the stop up and closure of Siddell Drive, which was done by council on August 10th, 2001. And the next step in the process would be to declare those lands surplus and convey them back to the applicant. So that's what's before us tonight. So hopefully that gives a bit of a description. And if anyone has any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Nick. Good job. Anybody with any questions in regards to this highly detailed technical housekeeping report? Anybody? All right. Seeing none, we have a move. Thank you, Nick. We have a mover and seconder on the motion. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to Legislative Services Clerk. We've got a procedural bylaw update. LS 018, 2021. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby one, receive report LS 018, 2021. Procedure bylaw update dated November 22nd, 2021. Item 2, the council approved remaining with the current meeting format and not proceeding forward with the committee of the whole structure, allowing for the next term of council to determine a format. And item 3, that staff be directed to begin the process of updating the current procedure bylaw, which will include scheduling a special meeting with council to review staff's proposed procedural rule changes and to receive additional recommendations, feedback, and direction from council before final approval. Okay. Mover and seconder on the floor. Is that you, Tom? Is that your recommendation? Tom is moving it. And is there a seconder on the floor? Mr. Lamers, thank you very much. And I'm going to go to Ms. Clerk. Do you want to have anything you want to add other than the obvious that we did have a recommendation to move to committee of the whole, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do it this term? Ms. Clerk.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, to you and to the rest of council. My report's pretty self-explanatory. This process started back in 2019, and for various reasons, we're here today, 2 years later, and we're going into our last year of this council term. So just logistically, it doesn't make sense to move forward with this committee of the whole structure at this point. However, understanding that both council and staff have provided me with some information that maybe it's time that we do update our procedure bylaw. It's been 10 years in 2022 since the last one's been passed. Obviously, we've had a few amendments, but I think it's time to take a full review, not doing a committee of the whole structure, but looking at the procedure bylaw rules governing our meetings in council and having an informative discussion with everyone and finding a document that can guide us through this next year and then going into the new term of council.
Excellent recommendation. Thank you. Anybody have any comments? if they'd like to jump in. Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. As a strong supporter for the reform, let's say, this aspect of the form of council to a new committee of the whole structure, I think it's only fair to the public and essentially to the accountability of the next council that we do what we're doing and defer it and have them consider this, because it was a hope that we would have a couple of years under our belt in this format when we first thought of this, and we're just not going to have it. So I thank the clerk and clerk's office for having the good judgment to just ask us to defer this until the next council.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. And further to that comment, it has been a challenging term to actually logistically even hold council meetings, to get to the point where we can be comfortable in the way we're doing this meeting tonight. Given the COVID restrictions, I know you'll all recall that we had times where we didn't even meet at all, and it was difficult there too. So there are things in our procedural bylaw that needed to be adjusted so that we could accommodate this procedure that we're in right now. And I think we also owe it to future councils to do a good review on the procedural bylaw to put it in place for the future, and perhaps draw upon some of the experiences that you've all had, and some of those of the staff. So anyway, that's what I'm hoping. So I'm really happy to see that we have this report in front of us, and I'm clearly going to be in support of it. Does anybody else have any questions? No? All right, Council, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for bringing it forward. Just as an aside, I will caution, we do have a number of special meetings coming in the new year. So we've got to work on our special meeting calendar, because we seem to keep popping up these special meetings. We're going to have to work that out. Maybe that'll be part of the procedure review. All right. Members of council, you've heard the discussion and the motion as presented. I'll prepare to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much, council. All right, council, we're going to move to bylaws. Here it is. Bylaw number 2178. It's the zoning bylaw amendment regarding cannabis cultivation and production facilities. Recommendation be it resolved that bylaw number 2178, being a zoning bylaw amendment, cannabis cultivation and production facilities, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 22nd day of November 2021. Mover and seconder on the bylaw, please. Mr. McKechnie, Mr. Broderick, thank you. Mr. McKechnie, Mr. Broderick. Council, we've again had great discussion about this, and so I'm prepared to call it. I will call the bylaw. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Oh, all in favor. Thank you very much. It was a little delay in the video. That was unanimous. Bylaw carries. Council, we have 21102, zoning bylaw amendment number 10581, County Road 10. Recommendation be it resolved, bylaw 21102, being a zoning bylaw amendment for lands municipally known as 10581 County Road 10, be presented at a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 22nd day of November 2021. I have a mover and seconder on this bylaw. Mr. Broderick and Mr. Lamers. Broderick and Lamers. And we've had a good discussion about this one also. Anything further? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All those in favor? And that bylaw carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Council, 21111, declare surplus and convey lands regarding Siddell Drive. Recommendation be it resolved. The bylaw 21111, being a bylaw to declare surplus and convey lands on Siddell Drive, be presented and read a first, second, third time, finally passed on the 22nd day of November 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on this? Mr. Broderick, Ms. Deneen, thank you. Any questions or comments? Had a good discussion. All those in favor? And that bylaw carries. Thank you. All right, council. We have the note regarding concession 10 Nottawasaga. And then we have the prescribed rate of speed for concession 10 Nottawasaga. Is there any questions of our staff regarding the explanatory note for concession 10 Nottawasaga? Seeing none, Good. We did have a good discussion about it, so I appreciate the note being included. Council, the bylaw recommendation. Be it resolved that bylaw 21-112, being a bylaw to prescribe rate of speed on concession 10 Nottawasaga, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 22nd day of November, 2021. Mover and seconder on this bylaw, please. Deneen, seconded by Lamers. Thank you, Deneen and Lamers. And I'm prepared to call it, unless there's any questions. I'll call the motion. All those in favor on the bylaw? That bylaw carries unanimous. Thank you, council. All right, council. Further, there's also another explanatory note regarding the advance voting on the 2022 municipal election. I have a bylaw in front of us. Is there any questions of staff regarding the explanatory note of the advance voting option? Okay, seeing none, I'll read the bylaw. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 21-114, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2189 to authorize advance voting for the 2022 municipal elections, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 22nd day of November 2021. Can I have a mover and seconder on this? Mr. Broderick, Mr. Burton, Deputy Mayor Burton, thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for that catch, by the way. I'm glad the explanatory note was in there to help us out. Council, item number 13 is our notice of business or new business, notice of motion or new business. And then 14 is our bylaw to confirm the proceedings. How about that? Only 7:11, not bad, guys. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 21-113, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 22, 2021 council meeting, be presented for the first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 22nd day of November 2021. Mover and seconder on the confirmatory bylaw, that'd be Deneen and Walker. And I will call the motion. All those in favor? And the confirmatory bylaw passes. All right, council, I do remember what I forgot to mention, Councillor Deneen. We have a meeting coming up on the 25th, which is a special workshop session of council to discuss the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement workshop. I hope that all members of council are able to attend. It is a workshop. From that workshop, we'll have a motion that will be brought to council in my hope after the workshop. We'll have some document to be able to bring to council as a report in regards to the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. I want to acknowledge before we even get there that our staff member, Kayla Reimer, has worked very diligently on this project, and we very much look forward to her and the work that she's done to present this information to us. I hope that we can all attend and hear from some of the experts that are going to be at that special meeting. So special meeting workshop. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Council, I need the motion to adjourn, which is recommendation be resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 7:12 p.m. Mover and seconder, please. Ms. Deneen, seconded by Mr. McKechnie. I will call the motion. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. So we are adjourning this council meeting. Thank you very much for participating. Thanks to all of our staff for joining us as well. Have a good night, folks, and stay safe. The roads are a little